In this lecture, we're going to gently dive in the world of working with animations. Let's go to Qt Creator and do that. Here we are in Qt Creator. We are going to create our project. It's a Qt Quick application. We call it Animations Intro Demo. Save it in a location on our drive. Hit Next. Choose the Qt version you have and choose your kit and finish. We want to change the title here. What we are going to do is basically to put in a rectangle and animate it as it moves from left to right and top to bottom. Let's put in our rectangle. First, we are going to put in a parent rectangle. The ID is going to be container. It's going to fill the parent, and it's going to have a beige color. This is what we want. We also want to give an ID to the window here. Let's call it root ID. And inside, we want to put our contained rectangle. Its ID is going to be contained rectangle. We want to give it a width of 100, a height of 100, and we want it to start at a position of X 50 and Y 50. We also want to give it a color. Let's make it Dodger blue. Now, let's say that I want to animate this rectangle as it moves from left to right. I want to move it up to an X value of 300, for example, and I want to animate that process of moving from left to right. I can use a property animation, and the way you use that, you say property animation. Let's select this and say on X. We go inside. I want to animate up to 530. You can put in whatever you want. And I want the animation to take 2 seconds, which is 2000 milliseconds as we specify here. Okay, and if you want to know more properties that are available on this thing, you already know what to do. You can select that, hit F1, and you go in the full help mode to see all the properties. We just used duration and the to property. Let's come back and we can run the application and see how it behaves. Let's run it. You see that as we run it, it moves from left to right, the rectangle inside. This is the behavior you have. The animation runs by default, even if you didn't specify for it to run. To be able to control when it runs and when it doesn't run, which is what you're most likely going to want, you can put a mouse area inside this parent rectangle here. Let's do that. We want it to fill the parent. And when it is clicked, we want to do something. We are going to come to the top here. Say property. It's a Boolean and it is running and it is false by default because we want the animation to be not running. We actually want to run the animation when you press down the mouse and stop the animation when you release it. This is what we're going to do. So we're not going to use on clicked. We are going to use on pressed, which is this one, and on released. And again, you can find these signals by looking at the documentation of mouse area here. So when we press, we are going to set the running property of this window here because that's where we defined it. We are going to set it to true. When we press down, we should actually put root ID. I'll have to do this so that things are very clear where the properties are coming from. When we release, we want to set this to false. And we want to set the running property of the animation. We can set that running. You see that we have it. We want to say root ID running. Okay. And this is a property bindings that runs this property to the property that we have at the root level. Don't be confused by the name. The names are the same, but they are two different properties. One is a custom property that we defined here. Another is a built-in property for the property animation that we are working with. Now, if we run the application, the animation is not going to run by default. We press down, it runs, we release, it stops, we press down, it runs, we release, it stops. This is how you can control your animation. We can also make our rectangle move from top to bottom. That's what we want to do. And we are going to use a number animation, which is a special kind of animation you use when you just want to animate numbers. So we are going to say number animation. On Y, we want to animate up to 300. It's going to take 2 seconds as well. And it's going to be running when we make it run, the same as this property animation here. So we're going to say root ID running. Run the application. When you press down, you see that our rectangle moves down, and it stops when it gets up to the ending location, which is a Y coordinate of 300. You can also do a rotation animation. Let's do that. Rotation animation. On rotation. That's the property that we want to play with. It's going to animate up to an angle of, let's say, 600. It's going to spin a few times. It's going to take 2 seconds as well. We want it to run when we press down the mouse and stop when we release it. And we're going to say root ID running here. Let's run the application. And you see that as we press down, it moves to the right, moves to the bottom, and it rotates. And just like this, we have covered a few basics of how you work with animations in your QML code. You basically specify your properties like we specified this rectangle here, and then you specify the animations that are going to animate the changes in properties. In our case, we animated the changes in X, the changes in Y, and the changes in rotation for our rectangle here. If you want to know more on these animations, you can select them, hit F1, come back in full help mode, and look at property animation. Provides a way to animate changes to a property's value. Come back to the code, look at number animation. We do the same thing. It is a specialized property animation that defines an animation to be applied when a numerical value changes, and they do what we basically did. Rotation animation is the same for rotation. It gives control over the direction of rotation during an animation. Now you have all the arsenal you need to start playing with this in your QML applications. In the next lecture, we're going to look at how you work with standalone animations. I'll see you there.